Palo Alto, California, a town home to many workers in the tech industry and Stanford University faculty, a meeting point of some of the most brilliant minds, this Silicon Valley town is highly educated and highly affluent. But underneath this pristine image lies a darker reality that is rarely discussed within families.
Deep in the heart of Silicon Valley, something is going terribly wrong with young people. My Nightline co-anchor Byron Pitts takes us to an affluent, iconic community that now has a teen suicide rate 5 times the national average. This is a story every parent needs to see.
Especially just for immigrants in general, they have this idea of sacrifice and sacrificing, like an easy life to kind of get something more. So like I know personally from my parents, like when they were growing up, it was kind of always a dream to come to America and like make it here.
And the parents are like, so-and-so's son or daughter did so many APs, so why don't you do it?
Yeah.
And then they get stressed out, and then kids get stressed out, and the whole family becomes.
Like my parents and like a lot of people like their age have kind of made it in some sense. Once they've achieved everything, like the next project for them is to create kids like them that, will also achieve at those high levels.
Just like statistically speaking, Gunn High School is like a very well known school for how well it sends kids into like the STEM programs, especially like all the good colleges around the world. And so, I mean, I think just the biggest factor is the environment in which it's in. I mean, Gunn High School is right in the heart of like Silicon Valley, where all these different like engineers and all these different successful people are. And so when you have a community like that, it commands more so of a environment where everyone's like trying to be successful, trying to do the best that they can. And especially when you have parents that graduated from the best schools in the world, have amazing jobs, and your friends' parents are all successful and they're all like changing the world in their own unique ways, then in that environment you kind of want to go, what am I doing, right? And how will I compete against these different types of successful people? And so it's, in a way, it's more like just kind of like edging up against each other, right? And in a way, it's a healthy, like stressful environment where it kind of helps you like further your own views and help you succeed more. But if it's too much, then it gets toxic, gets stressful, and at times Gunn High School hasn't been the best in battling against that kind of a environment.
This all comes from rooted cultural problem in like immigrant families. It's hard, it's very difficult for them to communicate that to them and like have them change their mindset. But I do think that it will just naturally get better with time because, after our generation has kids and is, sending them to these types of schools, hopefully we won't be the types of parents that give our kids values that will then, replicate the same thing that we're seeing.
I mean, maybe tech invites that kind of a personality, maybe, right? If you're always designing something that's always growing, always innovating, then you may be the type of person that's always trying to be growing, always trying to be innovating, right? And if you're that kind of person, then you're gonna have kids like that kind of people. And maybe that's how it goes, I'm not sure.
Shortly after the suicide cluster in Palo Alto, The Atlantic published a piece called The Silicon Valley Suicides. A highly controversial article. Some praised it for spreading awareness of an important issue, while others viewed it as a sensationalist media piece that was written to craft a dramatic story instead of being productive discourse. And as the most commonly cited work of writing on this issue, it was often used by outsiders to understand high school communities throughout the Silicon Valley.
I mean, obviously, with such events, there has been a lot of like publications, a lot of news about it. And for us in the community itself, it's weird. It's weird for sure, but it's also just not what we're looking for because it's other people that are not part of the community almost always just trying to understand how our community acts and thinks, right? You have people that are not familiar, not really like familiarized with with these kind of topics and these kinds of sentiments. Then you have people that are analyzing it in a different way, in a more insensitive way that people won't like. And I know that like a lot of the news articles that came out were very like they were pretty harsh about it, right? but they're also just just don't get it, I guess. They just don't get it. And when they just talk about these things that definitely impact everyone in my society, everyone in my community, like in a very profound way, and they just are very insensitive about it. Like it's very hurtful, right?
Yeah.